You switched to a plant-based diet because it seemed healthier, but now you feel more fatigued, your digestion's worse, and your brain fog hasn't budged. What if I told you the advice that's everywhere, eat mostly plants, might actually be making you worse? I'm Courtney, a clinical nutritionist who's lived with ME/CFS for over 25 years. Let's unpack why this popular diet may be totally mismatched for your condition. Let's start with the assumption that plant-based diets are balanced. In reality, they're often anything but. These diets tend to be very high in carbohydrates and relatively low in high-quality protein, which is exactly the opposite of what people with postviral illness need. The ratio of carbohydrates to protein is way off. The fatigue, inflammation, and muscle deconditioning that occurs in these conditions actually makes your body's protein needs go up. You need protein to repair tissues, to regulate immune function, and support the structural components that keep your mitochondria working properly. Most plant proteins are incomplete. They lack one or more of the essential amino acids that your body can't produce on its own. While it's certainly possible to combine foods like grains and legumes to make a complete profile, this requires a bit more knowledge, planning, larger volumes of food, and strong digestion, none of which are guaranteed with ME/CFS. Now let's go deeper to the crux of the problem. People with ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, and long COVID have impaired mitochondrial energy metabolism. This is well established in the research. Carbohydrates require fully functional mitochondria to break them down into energy, even whole grains. But when the system is dysregulated, you get something else: inefficient energy production, increased oxidative stress, and metabolic waste buildup. That's not theoretical, it's cellular fatigue. You eat, but instead of feeling energized, you feel wiped out. I've seen this time and time again in clients I work with, and I've lived it myself. More carbohydrates, more fatigue. This is probably the main reason why people feel worse on plant-based diets. This goes for simple carbohydrates like sugar and sweets, but also for complex carbohydrates like bread and pasta. We simply don't handle carbohydrate well. Plant-based diets also leave major gaps in nutrients that matter specifically for people with post-viral conditions, namely carnitine and choline. Carnitine is essential for moving fats into mitochondria where they're burned for fuel. Without enough of it, fats can't be converted into energy, leaving you more fatigued. And since carbohydrate metabolism is impaired, mitochondria rely heavily on using fats to make energy. Choline is required for liver health, and in that way is important for detoxification, but also cognitive function. Choline also supports acetylcholine synthesis, which is essential for memory, learning, and neuromuscular function. And it's especially critical in those with low estrogen, like postmenopausal women. Both of these nutrients are found mostly in animal foods, especially red meat, liver, and eggs. You can get some from quinoa, legumes, and peanuts, but it's not nearly enough. Surveys show that only 11% of Americans meet dietary choline requirements. That number is even lower on a plant-based diet. Let's shift now to digestion. Over 60% of people with ME/CFS have irritable bowel syndrome, and the prevalence is also high in long COVID and fibromyalgia. Many patients also struggle with small intestinal bowel overgrowth, or SIBO. These conditions make plant-based diets, especially those rich in FODMAPs, a big problem. FODMAPs are fermentable carbohydrates, which are found in foods like onions, garlic, apples, lentils, and cruciferous vegetables. They're known to trigger gas, bloating, abdominal pain, and fatigue after eating them. And when all of these symptoms overlap with an already fragile energy system, even what seems like a healthy meal can derail your day. Here's something else you don't hear often about plant-based diets. These types of diets require a lot more work. It requires a little more knowledge, planning, food combining, sometimes soaking or fermenting to make the foods easier to digest. And for people living with a chronic illness, extra energy costs for food preparation is something they cannot afford. So many end up relying on ultra-processed vegan or vegetarian substitutes, and these products are loaded with gums, preservatives, and stabilizers that disrupt the gut microbiome. It's about sustainability, and for many patients, this way of eating quickly becomes overwhelming and overtaxing. Most, if not all, ME/CFS specialists don't recommend strict vegan or vegetarian diets for patients for these very reasons. They know what the body needs in a state of chronic immune activation and mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, this doesn't mean that animal foods are magic or that plant foods are bad. It means that your physiology requires a tailored therapeutic approach, not dietary trends. If you've tried a plant-based diet and felt worse, you're not imagining it. These are probably some of the reasons why. Be sure to comment below and tell us your experience with plant-based diets. There will always be exceptions to the rule. Below, you'll find links to my nutrition video courses and other free resources at my website. And please subscribe to the channel for more no-nonsense, evidence-based nutrition guidance for post-viral recovery.